It's crazy to think about that in terms of timeline past debut, ITZY is currently where Twice was during Feel Special, around the 5-year mark of their debut. That's really weird to think about. And there's actually a lot of connections that can be made with these albums too. Both are kind of a self-honoring return to form after having a member take leave on hiatus. Both are effectively celebration albums for the fact that they have been able to do this for 5 years. Both albums revolve around this idea of their main narrative having a double meaning. The narrative is applicable both towards fans and also in regards to the members' relationships among themselves as a team. Gold is quite an experimental song. I probably don't have to tell you that, but what I will say is that I don't think it's anything too out of the ordinary for ITZY as a group. I think the tangible essence of ITZY that I can describe is colorful and experimental music with an emphasis on performance. More dimension to their group identity is added through their pop rock anthems, such as Nobody Like You, and potentially songs like Domino. I don't know if you could actually consider Domino pop rock, but nevertheless. Historically, this is the formula that has worked the best for ITZY. It's the full soundscape of what established them as a group in their debut year, and what launched them to becoming the representative girl group in the 4th generation. Gold as a title track synthesizes that familiar soundscape, but in a new way, combining the rock elements of their more sentimental B-sides with that experimental pure pop sound we've been used to, and shipping it out as a title track for the first time. And I think it works. Gold delivers a very literal sense of a triumphant return via its rocking instrumental. The chorus working to play towards both sides of ITZY's identity as artists is jarring at first, but that's what ITZY has always been about. If we look back to songs like Dala Dala and Icy, ITZY really came out of the gates swinging. They were known and had established themselves for being over the top in almost every aspect, and really stood in defiance to a lot of what was popular at the time of their debut. It provided quite a unique edge to the Girl Crush concept, which a fresh perspective or take on that was sorely needed at the time. So all of this is to say, ITZY is kind of in their element when it comes to more experimental tracks. Gold sets a new kind of tone as it introduces a new edge that's different compared to other title tracks before, but still, a sound like this has always been in ITZY's wheelhouse is what I'm trying to get at here. The title track alone sets up an expectation for this album to match its triumphant sense of energy, but it never really does, and that's not a bad thing, in my opinion. My number one concern going into this album before its release was that JYP Entertainment still hasn't picked up on the fact that they really struggle with concept development, which I believe hurts their artists more than anything else and causes them to suffer like with what ITZY has gone through these past couple of releases. Superficially, it seems ridiculous to claim that an album's concept has enough power to make or break a release for some people, but in an industry like K-pop, I think that's genuinely what we're dealing with on a very large scale. The more time that goes on, the more confused I am that Sneakers became the album that had people turning on ITZY. The Checkmate album synthesizes all of the aspects to their musical identity in the best way that they ever have, in my opinion, but as we know, Checkmate ended up falling short so much to the extent that it really compromised the reputation of this group in the process. There have been a million conversations about what exactly happened here. Most people point to the clashing concepts during the teaser period, which really aren't helped by the fact that JYP announces an album oftentimes more than a month in advance to the album dropping. We were presented initially with the Regal Royal concept first, and due to JYP's long teaser periods, we're able to sit with that concept for about a week or two. Then the sneaker side of the concept came to jeopardize all of that. People who were excited about the darker and royal concept now had to forget about it. This album was shaping out to be something quite different. If nothing else, I think this teaser phishing scandal did a lot of damage in the form of making the people who show up to ITZY projects hypersensitive to the concepts behind them. This is not a great situation to be in, given again, JYP Entertainment specifically really struggles with concepts. So going back to just before the release of Gold, this was my biggest concern. I look at the Sneakers album and outside of its concept and the problems that people had with it, I genuinely can't believe that this collection of songs is what had people turning on this group. This is why I'm so sensitive to concepts. Sneakers was always going to be a divisive song in the end, but I think the real tragedy is that ITZY has this perpetual target on their backs of scornful people who expect a concept that is really never going to come. I think all of this could have been avoided if the full scope of the Checkmate album's concept was presented at the very beginning. If ITZY really committed to the vibrant soundscape of the Checkmate album visually, we wouldn't be having these conversations. The bandwagon fans would have had no choice but to take or leave the concept as it was. As time goes on, I think this call for ITZY to stop doing what they want to do comes from a place of fans who only want to see ITZY be the #1 group in Korea so it can afford them bragging rights, or make them feel better in some ways, which I don't think is worth it. I think ITZY being allowed to do what they want, developing the vision they see for themselves, is far more valuable to the K-pop industry than any chart position in Korea. When it comes to Gold, I am pleased to report personally that I do think some meaningful concept work has been done here. To start, we do get a song description for the title track. YEJI says, "Gold is a song that compares the unfamiliar and strange emotions we feel about how our world is turned upside down after meeting you with finding gold." We even know that one of the songwriters for Gold visited the set, so with all of this, my concept development senses are going off the radar. After listening to the album, watching the music video, and considering all of it a little bit, I do think some concept development has taken place here. So I want to start by looking at the album cover. Underneath that layer of gold that allows them to shine brightly is nothing like it. I think it's incredibly interesting that the digital album cover for this album is pink. An effort to not make it gold is clearly here. It has to be for a reason, right? I don't know too much about color theory, but after looking into the relationship between the colors pink and gold, I think I've come up with a kind of interesting idea. The interaction of deep pink and gold by color expert and artist Liz Roche can serve as a good example. Walk with me here, I promise. Hopefully that this will make sense. The description of these art pieces that combine pink and gold reads as follows. The interaction of pink and golden yellow rectangles come together as opposite color temperatures to make one beautiful color family. The middle mixture between these two colors appears as though it's transparent and helps to form the outstanding color relationship. To put it more simply, despite being opposite temperatures, these two colors can work quite well together in a lot of ways. Returning to the album cover, we notice that ITZY is pink, and all of them are looking at us, the audience, or us as fans. So given the intentional lack of inclusion of the color gold, I suspect that it means we are what's gold to them. As midsies, we form that thin layer of gold that, when placed with ITZY, can allow them to shine brightly. We are the gold which allows them to shine is what I think this cover is getting at. Additionally, given Roche's explanation of color theory in mind, as we overlap together, the opposite temperatures of our colors give a transparent look into who ITZY consider themselves as artists and sometimes as individuals. I know I'm going a bit off the deep end here, but we are both what allows them to shine and what allows them to be vulnerable, essentially. This provides me with enough understanding and access into the concept of the Gold album. Tracks like Imaginary Friend and 5 are incredibly vulnerable looks into the relationship that ITZY has with fans and with each other. The music video kind of backs up this idea that we as fans are what's gold to them. We see ITZY themselves on the lookout for gold. There are people all over the place who are tearing the environment apart trying to find it. The music video takes on a kind of gold rush concept, but why? With YEJI's description of how Gold is a song about comparing the unfamiliar and strange emotions they feel about how their world is turned upside down after meeting us, comparing all of that with finding gold, it seems to portray a complex understanding of this dynamic. What all it took to shine like gold, and the damage it has wrought is something to consider, certainly nothing to avoid. Destruction is a through line throughout the entire narrative of this video. That's one of the implications of the gold rush. It provided people with a lot of prosperity and happiness, but there were others who suffered a lot. Environments were torn apart, deforestation and water contamination beyond the point of remedy. So I think the only place that my mind is right now is that those who found gold caused a lot of suffering in the process. Or maybe it took a lot of suffering to get the gold. I don't know. I don't know that I have a crazy specific analysis about this concept, but I do think it's something to consider given YEJI's description of the song. She calls the meeting with us as fans strange and unfamiliar in terms of how they felt about it. I don't think that's a dig at midsies in any way. I think it's just an honest look into what this experience was like for them. I understand this comeback to be surprisingly low concept, which again isn't a bad thing. That doesn't mean there's an absence of concept. It just means that it's not easy to summarize. There's a lot of narrative subtleties behind the decisions of this project, a lot of them which feel very personal to the experience of ITZY themselves, which I really enjoy. This is my initial understanding of the Gold album as it is. I would have loved for this to have been their second full album, of course. Maybe the complete versions of the previous album could have been released as a separate EP in that case, but nevertheless, I am really happy with the project that's been delivered. I think ITZY is on the right path. I'm incredibly happy to see them together as a 5-member group again at last. It's been a long wait, but if nothing else, I am appreciative that JYPE Entertainment is the kind of company that allows their artists to take these breaks when it's necessary. This album isn't the overbearing and triumphant return I was expecting, but it makes sense given where they are right now as artists. I will need a full album on my desk by the end of 2025, so just JYP Entertainment, if anybody happens to be watching, get ready for that. But yeah, I think these are my initial thoughts as far as the color theory and gold rush concept goes. If nothing else, it's a tangible concept that makes sense in my mind. Some concept work has been done here, which is what I've been barking at JYP Entertainment for the better part of 3 years to do, so I'll take it. Album is very, very excellent. I think my favorite songs right now are 5, Imaginary Friend, and Vey, which I think is Way pronounced with a Russian accent. I think I like it. Very, very, very ITZY vibes. Yeah, these are my thoughts right now. Let me know what you think about this album, the concept. What are your favorite songs? How do you feel about Gold? Is it too experimental for you? Do you think it's a good match for ITZY as a group? Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching this if you did. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.